This award-winning creative director and photographer has traveled the globe with recognizable work from billboards, celebrity magazine covers, fashion editorials, and gallery exhibitions. She is a founding member and executive director of the Columbus, Ohio-based nonprofit, A Tribe for Jazz, and the creator of a social emotional learning program for youth called An Exploration of Emotions and Color Through Jazz Music. As a mentor and coach to creative professionals, her transformational leadership style nurtures and encourages them to execute at a higher level with Holy Spirit excellence. Welcome to the stage, Stephanie Matthews. This highly sought-after real estate professional works tirelessly to be the best real estate agent for her clients and has used her client-centered approach to lead SLCT Label Realty. Her future-forward mindset has inspired her to pursue designations as a seller, representative specialist, and accredited luxury home specialist. She has been ranked a top producer on the North DFW Real Producers Top 500 Agent list for several consecutive years. Ladies and gentlemen, coming to the stage, Heather Stevens. Dr. Robyn Richardson grew up in a military family and has been educated in London as well as the United States. She earned a BA from the University of Texas at Austin and a doctoral degree from the California School of Professional Psychology. She is a dedicated mother, motivational speaker, entrepreneur, as well as the owner and founder of Brighter Paths Wellness and Counseling, whose mission is to reach Dallas residents with competent and compassionate therapy services. Her love for helping others consistently puts the client's needs first. Meet a champion for our community's well-being, Dr. Robyn Richardson. Our next speaker is all about life and health. Pastor Femi is a philosophy graduate from the University of Lagos. After graduation, he worked in public relations and television production. He was ordained in the ministry in 1996 at the Redeemed Christian Church of God and has been directly involved in the planning of 6 churches on 3 continents. He currently serves as the lead pastor of New Covenant House in Farmers Branch, Texas. PF, as he is fondly called, enjoys playing golf and watching comedies. He is married to Omotayo, also an ordained pastor, and they have 2 lovely daughters. Without further delay, Pastor Femi.
She is a force to be reckoned with in the world of medicine. She is a board-certified family physician along with her husband, and they founded CaresMed Family Medicine in 2018. CaresMed is an innovative, direct, primary care concierge medical practice dedicated to clinical excellence, enhanced patient experience, and optimal health outcomes using a functional medicine approach. After sitting down talking with this mom of 2 boys for 5 minutes, you will immediately appreciate her unique way of approaching modern medicine. Ladies and gentlemen, buckle up and get ready for Dr. Vera Oyabure. Dr. Matthew Igbenege, also known as Dr. Iggy, is an orthopedic surgery resident and a micro-influencer who is passionate about teaching for and increasing minority representation in the medical field. He uses his social media platform as a catalyst for change through the production of creative short-form videos. After graduating from Texas A&M University with a Bachelor of Science in Kinesiology, he obtained his medical degree from the University of Texas Medical Branch in Galveston, Texas. Currently, he is completing his residency in Dallas at a busy trauma center. Welcome to the stage, Dr. Iggy.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. You're such a beautiful audience. My name is Stephanie Matthews, and it's an honor to be your panel host this morning for the Life and Health panel. Welcome, everyone. Yeah. So I want to start things off with Pastor Femi. Pastor Femi, first of all, you're the head of this very beautiful church that we're blessed to be in this morning, New Covenant House. And so we want to say thank you for that. And so it's a blessing to be here. So, Pastor, we live in a world where logic oftentimes guides faith. Talk to us about the importance of letting go and letting God. That's part one. And what is the importance of having faith when it comes to mental health?
It's interesting, and welcome everybody. And I'm really glad we had the opportunity to host the WOW conference this year. It's interesting that you would ask about logic, because my first degree is in philosophy, and logic was actually the only class that I think I got an A in. Everything else, well, we'll keep to ourselves. But logic is, how will I put it? Logic and faith, I think, logic will always lead you to faith, right? Logic will always lead you to faith, because the only logical explanation for our existence is a greater being, right? And the acknowledgement of that greater being is the first step into having sound mental health. Acknowledgement of the greater being gives us purpose, gives us a reason to be alive. And I think one of the reasons why we struggle mentally, sometimes I struggled with my mental health, was losing or not having purpose, right? So faith is a critical component of having any sense of purpose. And that sense of purpose becomes the anchor for a stable mental health. I've spent the last 3 years in therapy, and what has become really clear to me is that my faith is a critical component of the soundness of my mind. Knowing that I am not alone, knowing that I am cared about, I am loved, beyond my circumstances, beyond the people around me, is very comforting and very anchoring. I don't know if that makes any sense.
And I love that you were speaking about purpose, because that leads me into a question for Heather Stevens. So Heather, your career path has been very interesting. You started as a dental hygienist in 2004, but now you're a top real estate seller in the region. Please talk briefly about that journey and the revelation of thinking your purpose was one thing, then realizing it's another, and the role your faith played in how you used what you learned in terms of compassion and empathy in this new space.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me here today. But yeah, it's been quite a journey. So I was just actually speaking with someone in the back and talking about, I think there's so much pressure in the world that we live in now about having it all figured out, especially when you're younger and I've got to go to college, I've got to have this plan, I've got to create all this wealth, I've got to have this all lined up or I'm not successful. And that's, what I feel like a lot of the world says and has this like plan that we're supposed to do. And for me, I really didn't find what my purpose was till I was 30. So I went, my entire 20s, I went to college. I was a dental hygienist, and I just knew there was something more for me. And, I'd pray about it. God, open doors, and what do I want to do? And God just started opening these doors for me that it was just so clear. And I'm a people person. I love to talk. So in being as a hygienist, I felt like that really prepared me for in the medical field. I mean, you deal with a lot of emotions. You deal with, people coming in, they're nervous, they're sad, they're upset. And so same thing that kind of passed along in what I do now. But God, he had all of those steps already making the way for me. He knew where I was going to be right now and this moment. And man, I just sit back and I look at that with so much gratitude because I didn't see it. And I had this whole different vision for me and just the opportunities that he's created and the life that he's allowed me to live so far, if we put that in his hands and really just sit back and not try to have everything figured out, but no, God, give me passion for what you have for me in our business and our family and our life, and finding that balance of still enjoying life and not feeling that pressure so much of just, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, but God puts that in place for you. And then, he'll open those doors for you if you're putting him first to be able to to let you see what your real purpose is and give you what your heart desires. So.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Heather. Thank you. Dr. Vera, question for you. You have a very successful medical practice called Caris Med, Family Medicine, which you started with your husband. As a doctor, you spend your days pouring into others to help them reach optimal health. So this question is about self-care. Sometimes it is easy to neglect your health when owning your own business. Why is it important to invest in your own health?
So we overcome the world by the power of our testimony. So I'll start with myself. I started my practice about 6 years ago with a huge leap of faith. I was a hospitalist prior to that, and I knew that God had a greater purpose in terms of how I was meant to serve my community. And he would kind of speak through the patients. He would say, they would ask, do you have a practice? Do you have a practice? I'll be like, no. And honestly, like Heather, I never intended to have a practice. I had my own plan. I was going to work, I was going to make my money, and then that would be it. I would go home and enjoy my family. But God said, no, I want you to serve a greater purpose, particularly in this community, and that's the community of Katy. And I took that huge leap of faith, and I went all in. Every day, all day, grind, serving, to the point that I got very overwhelmed by the responsibility that I knew that God was setting me for. And with that stress, it began to take a toll on my health. And it was like at a moment, God said, it's time to rest. It's time to rest. And he reminded me of the faith step that I had taken to go into my own practice. And then that next step was like, now it's time to trust me. It's time to trust me to provide for you, to be able to serve the community that I sent you to. And it was at that point when I took that next leap of faith and trusted God, that God began to heal me. He began to tell me, hey, it's time to take a vacation. And I went and with some girlfriends to LA. It was awesome. It was probably one of the best things I've done in my life. And so this was part of that self-care that just, kind of took me into, if I don't take care of myself, there's no way I can serve the community at my optimum if I'm neglecting myself. And so I began to, take priority and getting my hair done every month, like simple things. Getting my nails done every month. That's part of how I pour back into myself to make sure that I'm my best for my patients. And so, yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Vera. Dr. Robyn, this one is for you. You grew up in a military family and have traveled the world. You've been in many different environments and experienced all types of people in your work in the mental health space. When it comes to dealing with work environments that affect your mental health, does it make sense to leave those environments or learn how to manage? That's one part.
Okay.
And the second one is, how do you know the difference between when it is time to persevere or when it is time to leave a work season?
Okay, first I want to say thank you so much for having me. Thank you all for coming out. So, the workplace, I get that question a lot of times from my patients who have brought various issues that are going on, turmoil in the workplace, and that is a very difficult question. And from the fundamental standpoint, I can't answer that for them. So looking at their experience and my experiences, if you know that something is toxic, or you're coming in and you're dreading going into work every day, there's conflict, something needs to change. The tragedy of it is when we envelop a characteristic called learned helplessness. And it can happen in the workplace as well. That's, for example, where you just feel like, I just got to grin and bear it. A lot of times I'll hear, Dr. Robyn, I've got my kids, I've got to bring in the money, and it's just not as easy as me walking away. When really it's not about walking away, it's about expanding your perspective, one, and being able to let go and walk out on faith. Like I said, I can never tell somebody to leave their job. Even me I was a single mother at the time that I earned my PhD. That was a leap of faith, a true leap of faith. In a secular sense, it was crazy, but it was because God directed me. It was a leap of faith, because when I tell people, they just give me this look like, okay, is it real? So my point is you have to be able to see it as a situation where you do have an out, and that may be God telling you, because he doesn't want you to be unhappy. He doesn't want you like persevering through something that is causing you anguish. He didn't put us there for this. So that in itself should be motivation for you to say, you know what, if this is causing me this kind of pain, then I need to go, and God is going to show me where I need to go, where I'm supposed to be. This is not the place that I'm supposed to be. I'm going to have to put my trust in him to show me, you know, the other way that I need to go. And I am so sorry I got hooked on the first question.
Oh, Dr. Robyn, you're amazing. No, the second part is how do you know the difference between when it is time to persevere or when it's time to leave a work season?
Yes, and I think I kind of answered that there. You just, if you're waiting for that right moment, and sometimes we do, and we get comfortable in that space. And that's what you have to acknowledge and see. If you're enduring something or some place that you're not supposed to be because it's comfortable, get out of your comfort zone, okay? God has better for you. God has more for you. He wants you to reach. He wants you to achieve your goals. He put you here for a purpose, not to just sit here and be unhappy because it's comfortable. If you don't take anything else from what I'm saying, use your faith. Step out of your comfort zone. It's going to hurt momentarily, but when God's plan comes together, you're going to be dancing, okay?
Amen. Amen. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Robyn. Dr. Iggy. So, I love this. I'm so excited to meet you. So a few days ago on your Instagram, which, by the way, is at doc.iggy, so if you want to follow him, you can do that. Had to hype you up. You did a post referencing 2 Timothy 1:9, which says, don't let anyone discourage you from your calling. What I love about your messaging is that it takes viewers on your journey, but you're also a representation of perseverance. Please tell us about how you, about why you became a micro-influencer in the midst of medical school and the message you're sharing.
Thank you so much for that introduction. Hi, everybody. I just want to say thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. It's interesting that social media has the power to put someone in a position to speak on their life experiences when all of us in this room probably have similar experiences. In terms of my social media presence, I went viral. I went viral in a moment. The country was going through social unrest, as you all know, and I began to see myself in those who were experiencing what people like me experience daily. And so I questioned that if someone knew what I did for a living, if it would challenge the way that they approached me on day-to-day life if I was wearing just regular clothing. And so I just posted a juxtaposition of myself in a hoodie and one in my work clothes, and it went viral. And for that reason, I basically saw that my story had value. Honestly, I'd say in my work environment, sometimes I questioned if the significance of my background as it related to what I was doing. And through social media, I saw that I had a lot more support than I experienced on the job. So what that verse applies to this is that social media, God allowed social media to give me, to show me that my story is worth hearing and that I should not be ashamed of myself or my experiences as it relates to where I am today. And moreover, that God gives me, He Himself is the fuel for me to do what I'm doing daily and tomorrow. And so I think it's really just, I use my social media as a means to encourage others to walk in their calling, which is not determined by any man around you. So.
I love it. Thank you, Dr. Iggy. Thank you. And thank everyone. I thank you all for your candid and transparent responses. So these questions, I'm just going to open up to anyone who feels like responding, and multiple people can jump in. And so this first one has to do with the COVID-19 pandemic. So the pandemic forced a change in our lives. What were some personal revelations you came to as a result of it? Because everybody went through a shift. Who would like to take that?
I'm happy to. The COVID pandemic was interesting for me in my line of business, especially as a primary care physician, was prior to COVID-19, I think people saw their health as just something that was there. If something was going on, that would make them come into the clinic. But as COVID-19 came in, it kind of shifted people's perspective of their health and perspective of their life in general, as they saw their loved ones die so quickly. And I think it made them more self-aware that prevention is better than cure. And so for me, it created an opportunity to really take in a group of people who were afraid of the uncertainty of the, being unhealthy or not having access to health. I think that was part of it too. And be able to encourage them through a season that was very difficult for everyone. And even my established patients who were fine and they were working and doing well when the pandemic hit, it really brought out some of that anxiety and that depression related to the uncertainty that they felt they were facing in the midst of COVID-19. And so I think this shift has been actually good for us because our self-awareness of health, life, what's important, what's not, was necessary. I think we were living kind of in this, imaginary world in a way. But COVID-19 in ways, although we saw some divisiveness, it brought us together. Because at that point, it didn't matter who you are. Everybody was kind of affected by it. And so as we came out of COVID-19 to a great extent, we still see a few cases, but we see this cohesiveness within our community from social media to YouTube. Like that became very big, and it connected the world in a way that it wasn't like that before. Like we're interacting with people in China and Russia and all over the world, and I think it's been beautiful, but it's also a reminder keeping those things that are important first. Taking care of your neighbor, caring for your loved ones, taking care of yourself, and taking your health as a priority. I always describe to my patients that your health is your wealth. When you don't take care of yourself, it's very difficult to be able to take care of others. And it doesn't matter the line of business that you're in. And so that's what I would say.
No, thank you, Dr. Vera. Dr. Robyn, I saw you shaking your head. You want to hop in on this?
Yes, definitely. So with COVID-19, I think everyone, it was obviously no respecter of persons. Everyone was affected in some way, whether it was you were affected by a loved one or you yourself having to deal with COVID-19. So I think it's safe to say it took a mental toll on some level on everyone. And so at that time, initially, our practice did for a short period of time have to slow down, but it ramped back up. And that's what people brought to the table. It was like, hey, how do I deal with this? I've been sick, my loved one died. It was like we were in a realm of, even though I'm a mental health provider, we were in a realm where we had never been before. And I think that was part of also the influx of people coming in with anxiety, is we're just getting all this information. We don't know what to do, where to go. But at the end of the day, coming out of it, I do want to say that it perhaps exposed some mental weaknesses that we've had, but also it has demonstrated too how important mental health really is. And I really like the way Dr. Vera said, I think we've all come out stronger as a population, you know, all over. I don't think anyone, whether you're here or, like she said, on the opposite end of the world, can say that there is not definitive proof that what we go through affects our mental health, and we have to take notice of it. You just can't isolate it from the physical. Yes.
And I just want to add too, because I do, from my nonprofit side, I do work in the education space, and we created a program through our nonprofit called An Exploration of Emotions and Color Through Jazz Music, which is about social emotional learning combined with jazz, film, art, and to help the children, you know, foster greater emotional well-being. And what we found in the schools that we were visiting and I'm talking about, like, you know, post-pandemic, I mean, the children came back and there was just such, you know, a lot of trauma, and you know, there was emotional regression, and they were just seeing so many different things. And I think about the teachers as well, and then, like, of course, the parents and the emotional stress that they went through coming out of the pandemic. But what's interesting is that shift for a lot of people, I think, also refined purpose. And so, Pastor Femi, I was wondering, could you speak to that?
Yeah, you know, my experience was very, I guess, when 2020 started, we had all these plans for the year. You know, we had all the things we wanted to do. We had just left the denomination. I mean, the year just looked fantastic, projecting out. And by February, end of February, early March, we were shut down as a church. And then the anxiety from the congregation was palpable. You know, everybody was looking for God. So we had to very quickly pivot from having in-person services to online services, because we needed to keep the community together, because we could sense the anxiety, we could sense the fear, we could sense the isolation that people felt. So we had to ramp up all of our activities online, which was for us a new space. So while all this is going on, there's a lot of activity, physical activity, you know, but there's also the mental anxiety that you are feeling personally. Because even though you're trying to meet the needs of the community, you're not exempt from the impact of the COVID on everybody. It's still my wife and I and the kids alone in the house. So you're trying to meet the needs of the people, but you also have your own fears. At that time, I think I must have weighed about 240, 250 pounds, something like that. And I was constantly anxious, you know, about catching COVID, because at that size, you heard all the stories. You know, it would be harder to breathe and all of that. So I was struggling mentally, while at the same time having to function at a much higher level, at a faster pace, you know. But what helped me, and I think my wife as well, was that sense of purpose. That sense that, you know what, we have to take care of these people. And as we take care of them, God will take care of us. You know, we were so focused on the mission that very quickly our own anxiety receded into the recesses of our minds. And what I saw was, like you said, the community came together. You know, we were doing birthday drive-bys, you know, food drops. You know, people all of a sudden cared about their neighbors in a way that they didn't before, you know. And it wasn't just about, oh, I care about my neighbor, I'm saying it. People were actually actively caring about their neighbor. People were sending us messages about a neighbor who doesn't have any food to eat. You know, people were sending us, you know, messages about doctors and nurses that had been working, you know, 48 hours in a row. So I don't want to say that was a silver lining, because there was just too much pain, too much grief, too much anguish. But we saw that through the COVID, you know, and it just helped reinforce that we were on the right track in our walk with God and in the pursuit of God.
Dr. Iggy, would you like to step in on this?
Absolutely. Yeah, so the pandemic was a special time for me. As I said, that was the time I got exposed to social media and a lot of different people around the world. But it's interesting, my experience with Vera, I'm in orthopedics, if you guys don't know. Orthopedics is about 70% elective, 30% non-elective, and so that means 70% of our work was decreased because they canceled all the elective cases because of COVID. And so I think a lot of us had a lot more time to explore different things that we're usually not able to because we're so busy. And so for me, it was social media, and I just realized the power of being able to connect to people you've never met. There's people I met in this conference that I've never seen in person, but I feel so connected to them through social media. And that's the power that I fed from many times to do what I do every day. And currently, so anyone who's pursuing medicine, residency is just kind of just a beating. It's like a purification through fire. And so it's extremely discouraging, as you would expect. Mental health is on the forefront of performance. And so for me, I had a lot of hard times, dark times, even during that pandemic. And what I fed from was the people around me who were encouraging me to do what I was doing, and then Christ, who pretty much reminds you of the truth of who you are. And that is really makes you unshakable. I'd say through the COVID pandemic, being able to connect to people that you otherwise wouldn't be able to, and understanding the truth of God and understanding the truth of knowing who you are, rather, I think is what makes you untouchable in any season of your life.
Sorry, I just wanted to quickly add something. I feel like one of the challenges for us is a self-centeredness. We're so in our own heads and so focused on our own selves that we can get lost there. It can become a rabbit hole, and then depression and anxiety and all the other things follow. Because when you focus so much on yourself, you start to see only yourself, and you start to think of yourself as alone. But what we saw during the pandemic was people were forced to think about other people, right? The trauma was so universal that you could not just focus on yourself. And I realized that the more we looked outward to helping other people, the better we became. So I think that as a community, the more we look to helping each other, caring about each other, carrying each other's burdens, I think that that is how God planned it. The more we carry each other's burdens, the less burden we have to carry. I think that's one of the things I learned from COVID.
Absolutely, Pastor. Absolutely. Heather, so spinning off of like the COVID-19 and this idea of the shift, one of the things that we've seen nationwide is that there's been workplace burnout. Okay, and what advice would you give a young professional who might be currently experiencing it? Is that something you want to?
Yeah, I mean, I was there. Yeah, I mean, I was there. Like you were speaking about, that's a real thing. Like I hated, and it wasn't my calling. It wasn't my passion. And so it's not that it was a bad career. I just hated getting up every morning and going and doing that. I dreaded it. I cried. I would tell my husband, like, I don't want to do this anymore. And that is such a real thing. I mean, just getting burnout. So there's that end of things of just getting burnout and figuring out, what your purpose and passion is. And then there's the part of burnout of when you become an entrepreneur and like every day it's on you. Are you going to get up? Are you going to do the work? Because if you don't do it, there's nobody on you now to say, you got to do this. Like you got to get up and be motivated or you're not going to pay the bills. So it's just life. So that's a whole other work burnout, because you can become so consumed with, I've got to be the best. I've got to do this. I've got to conquer this today. I've got to, make all these things happen, and you put so much pressure on yourself, and you're working so hard. And when I first started out in real estate, I was doing both for 6 months. So I would leave on my lunch break. I would change out of my scrubs. I would go and show a house. I would come back, put my scrubs on, clean some more teeth, leave. I would work till 9, 10 o'clock at night. And I did that for 6 months because my husband said, okay, here's our goal. Here's what we need for you to be able to walk into that, and feel comfortable in our lives. So, I was grinding. And then that pattern just kind of stuck with me as I went full time into real estate. But I started to notice, and I'm guilty of it, I started to notice that I was putting that above things in my life that should have been first, above my family. I would be at dinners and I would take the calls, and I would be in a movie and I would walk out and I'd take the call. And you start seeing that really take a toll on you. You don't realize it kind of in the beginning and the moment, but you have to learn, there's a balance. And I really had to learn that. Not that I've ever disliked what I'm doing, but there was a point where I just got really, tired, and you can feel like you don't have that energy. And so one of the biggest things I learned is we sometimes feel like we're being selfish, getting up in the mornings and taking an hour for yourself, working out, journaling, your prayer time, whatever that may be. I've learned I have to have that. If you want me to be a really nice, good human being, I need that for you all. But that's my one moment. And sometimes, it's funny, we joke in real estate, people say, realtors always say they have an appointment, but I have an appointment at yoga. I have an appointment at my gym. I do. I have an appointment for myself, because if I put that first, if I put the things that I know, my family, my faith, my health, all of the other things, you're just better at. You become better at them because you feel good about yourself. You have the energy. You have what you need mentally to be able to do this and conquer the day.
Thank you. Yes, Heather, indeed. At this time, we want to open it up for audience questions before we return back to the panel.
This question is actually for the pastor. I appreciate your transparency when you said you were seeking counseling. You had been taking counseling for years. I noticed one of the most difficult things that in my circle that men do not admit, nor do they say that they need counseling, both mental or whatever it may be. What were your first steps in deciding to move forward to get help with your mental struggles, or to seek some form of counseling?
I don't want you guys to think that I did the right thing right away. It took me a while. I'm a man, and you're right, we struggle with that. I'm also of African descent. I'm a Nigerian man, and we struggle with that even more. Mental health issues are, if you say you have a mental health issue, is either you are sane or insane. There's no middle ground, right? In fact, we don't even use the word insane, we use the word mad. It's either you are normal or you're mad. So just admitting that you have a mental health challenge is saying to people you are mad. So we don't do that. I don't do that. But I went through a season where I deteriorated so badly. I was so overwhelmed, and it was just bad. I remember I went out to dinner with my first daughter, and at dinner, she just started crying, and said, "Dad, you need help. We can all see you struggling." And that is when I knew that I needed to get help. With what we do in ministry, the nature of ministry is you hear a lot of the bad news, and you can, if you're not careful, you will absorb that. And you will carry that. And you will mistake carrying other people's burdens for being a good Christian. I'm not supposed to carry the burdens. Jesus is supposed to carry the burdens. So I had to learn how to put myself in my proper place in the equation, right? I'm just a conduit to Christ. I am not Christ. I am not the Messiah. I can't save you. So for me, the first step was having that come to Jesus moment with my daughter, right? Having her say, you need help, seeing my wife struggling with me. I actually had like a nervous breakdown, where I just lost it. And my boss and my mentor basically kicked me out of ministry and then said if I wanted to get back, I had to go into therapy. And I went to see my therapist, and my therapist said to me that I won't even talk to you. You're so messed up. You can't comprehend or understand even basic things. We need to get we need to stabilize you, and then we can start talking. So they put me on medication, and it stabilized me, and then we started weekly therapy, which I have continued since 2019. What you were talking about, burnout, I think what also contributed to my challenge was burnout. I come from a very performance-based culture where we assess ourselves based on how much we succeed, and success is usually material, but then as I have grown and as, through therapy, one of the scriptures that the Holy Spirit now has space to minister to me is, beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as your soul prospers. That means that I cannot prosper beyond my mental health, beyond my physical health, beyond my spiritual health. God has called us to balance, right? And in trying to seek balance, there are certain things that I will not be able to achieve, right? I cannot be a master of the universe and be a good husband at the same time. God has not given me that capacity, right? So in order to be a good husband, be a good father, be a good Christian, be healthy, maybe I have to just settle for being a pastor. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say. So something gives, right, in order to attain balance. If you pursue your physical health above your emotional health, you're going to get out of balance. If you pursue material health above your emotional health or your spiritual health, you're going to get out of balance. So balance is what I try to seek now. And once I'm out of balance, then I start to feel the deterioration. I don't know if that helps.
My question is for any of the panelists. What does forgiveness, or how does forgiveness or the inability to forgive impact your mental health?
I'll go ahead and answer that. That is very powerful. And I want to say that I have my own journey with unforgiveness. I can speak to it in a sense of being a doctor, seeing patients, and I can also speak to it on a personal level. Forgiveness, the way I define it is letting go. It's allowing yourself to experience freedom. A lot of times we think of holding something against someone, and again, someone wrongs us. If they did, they just did. There's no amount of unforgiveness that will change that. What I have to tell people sometimes is, and even with my kids, that person may be walking around just fine, and you're the one sitting there day after day in anguish. And unforgiveness can be so palpable that it can take on a life of its own. It's all you think about. It's just, how could this person have done this? And you're trying to rationalize it, and then it can become a vicious cycle. So again, you really have to be careful with the spirit of unforgiveness. And first, take it to God and ask Him to soften your heart and ask you to have a spirit of forgiveness. Again, it doesn't mean that you're forgetting what that person has done. It just means that your life is worth living. Your life, you are worth continuing your purpose, and you're not going to let something they've done to you get in the way. That's what you're saying.
I would add to that. So I always refer to residency as a harsh environment. I'm sure people in this room understand, but basically, In a harsh environment, you are quick to be offended. And sometimes through the process, you may personalize it to people. And those people don't go anywhere for the most part. And so unforgiveness becomes a shackle. And so for me, it was a shackle. And at times, it still challenges to be a shackle. But what I've learned is that the more I understand that God's sovereignty overrules every day-to-day experience, it allows you to not carry that shackle every day. And so, again, I keep talking about identity, understanding who you are. It allows me to latch onto who I am and who He says I am. And so I don't have to worry about what has been done to me. I won't forget by any means, but I don't have to hold it on them. And then moreover, even I feel like He gives us guidance as to address people who have offended us. And what I've learned by applying it is that it saves your own energy. When you're not trying to get back or you're not thinking about how they're going to get at you, it gives you the energy to do what you need to do what He's told you to do on that day, and allowing Him to handle whatever that is. So one, forgiveness within yourself is one piece. The other piece is handling people that you may deem are your enemies around you in a way that God has informed. And I think together it allows you to walk in forgiveness in a powerful way.
I just wanted to say, I dealt with that on a personal level, just with family, in my own life. And, I'm not a doctor, but just personally through the experience I had, someone told me one time, and I really realized, it took time. Like, I had to heal through the process I couldn't immediately be like, I forgive you. Okay, we're done. But it took me time to let that heal in my heart. But they told me, you can forgive, but that doesn't mean that you have to allow that, even though it's family. You don't have to allow that back in your life, because if you feel like that's not a healthy part of your life to bring mental health and brings down your physical health, it's okay to say, I forgive you, but that doesn't mean we have to mend this relationship and we have to go back into something that maybe you feel is toxic. And through that, it took time, but, I was able to release that. And for me, mentally releasing that, I think just opened up so much more for me to be able to let that go, because in the back of my mind, I always dwelt on that. I was just always thinking that really hurt me. That was painful. That affects me. That's a big part of my life. I don't have that in my life anymore. But God placed people in my life to replace that with healthier relationships.
Wonderful. Other audience questions?
Hi, good afternoon. So I have two things. One, Dr. Iggy, happy early birthday. And then two, this is for the wonderful medical panelists today. I just wanted to know a little bit more about your background. So what led you to pursue medicine, and then how did you pick your specialty, basically?
I guess we're going from right to left. So my family knows I grew up wanting to be an engineer. I broke apart vacuums and computers. That's just what I did. But as I evolved in the journey, my siblings and those before me pursued medicine. And as their first boy, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do something different. Obviously didn't, but I got to undergrad and I was applying to an engineering major. And in that meeting, I was told that there were no openings. And for some reason, I received that, discouraged. And I went to my siblings and I asked them, hey, this is where I'm at. These are my interests. This is what they're telling me. And they're like, look, you can apply it another way. The goal of everything was always to help people. We always say we want to help somebody. And so basically through those conversations, I saw that I could apply my interest.
Dr. Matthew Igbenege, also known as Dr. Iggy.
And so basically, I found medicine by applying my interest in engineering to the human body, and I felt like that was a more eternal effect. I feel like I'm a social person. I can't see myself in a cubicle. No offense to my engineers in the room, but I love interacting with people, and it drives my energy to keep going rather than sucking it out. So that's why I chose medicine. Science and interaction with people.
Dr. Vera?
So my journey was interesting. I actually, from a very young age, knew I wanted to be a doctor. And I remember vividly a story of where we had to do role play when I was in preschool, and they had given me the role of a storekeeper. And I was so upset about that because I knew I was going to be a doctor. And so honestly, it was just faith that took me forward. I never doubted it. I never doubted that I wouldn't be a doctor, and I pursued it as if I was a doctor already. And so even through the hurdles of going through getting into medical school, going through the process of becoming a resident, it was like, well, that is just what God had already instilled inside of me, and it wasn't going anywhere. And God's faithfulness, of course, brought me to this point. Why I chose family medicine specifically, I am a family medicine practitioner. I own my own practice out in Katy, Texas, so in Houston, one of the suburbs of Houston. And I pursued family medicine specifically, but honestly, I pursued family medicine because everything that was specialty was going to be boring. At first, I thought about being an OBGYN, but I was like, honestly, I don't want to see that part of the body all the time. I mean, you know? And then I was like, okay, maybe I'll be a cardiologist. And I was like, well, I don't want to be focused on the heart all the time. And so that began my journey. It's like, and now I don't want to just do adults. I want to see kids. I want to see elderly. And that's why I pursued family medicine. And the journey has really brought me into that full calling to serve my little ones, those young, precious babies at their day 3, day 5, to the elderly that, you know, are just as that little child is just a beautiful experience, and I love it every day. And so that's kind of my journey.
So my journey, if you want to go all the way back, started with me wanting to be a lawyer and then a judge. My dad even gave me a gavel, you know, with my name on it, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to be a judge. And so I got a little disillusioned with that when I first got to college, and so took my first class in psychology, and I was like, okay, we know all this about the brain, and we can talk about it and our behavior. This is cool. I think I want to do this. So from there, changed my major. So interestingly, I kept digressing my path with having a family, you know, moving, and just all sorts of ways that life can tug at you. But I just want to say that if you stick with God's plan and that's what you want, no matter what diversions come, you still need to be focused on the plan that you have. And so I say this because after I received my master's, that was the true leap of faith for me, because I was like, okay, well, I can become an LPC. And of course, that's a great thing. That's prestigious in itself to be an LPC. But I said, no, I want to be a doctor. I want to be able to do assessments. I want to take it to a different level. But then I was like, no, that's not rational. I'm a single mother. I have 4 small kids, and the college that accepted me is in California. That's just not a rational thing. I don't even know that I would tell somebody that and think they're going to believe it. So I did. I ended up taking that leap of faith and moving me and my kids across country from Texas to California to get my PhD. I was the only person in my cohort with kids. So not to say there weren't obstacles in the way, but again, it's just going back to your purpose and what you know. You know, fear's going to come, doubt's going to come, you're going to have struggles. But again, just making sure that you're solid in the word. You're solid, and God's going to give you what you need to succeed. No mountain is too high. Okay, so now I look back at that and I chuckle, even though it's in the rearview mirror. But now I'm a licensed psychologist. I have my own practice. I have two locations. I have several clinicians that work up under me. Nothing is too hard when you put God first in your life. Okay.
Amen. Yeah, I was going to say, we unfortunately we do have to get ready to wrap. I do apologize, but I wanted to give Pastor Femi the final word. Thank you so much, audience. Please.
Thank you. So I just want to say something really quick. I love this panel. You know, I love how everybody has gotten to their destination, but it wasn't always a straight path. You know, I think sometimes when we talk, the people listening get the impression that we knew what we were doing all the time. This was all calculated. This was all planned. You know, Vera is the only person here who knew what she wanted to be from when she was a child. You know, he wanted to be an engineer. I wanted to be a soldier. She wanted to be a lawyer. Heather was a dental hygienist, you know, and none of us except Vera are where we, are where we started from. And I think it's an important lesson that sometimes you just don't know. You just don't know, and you put one foot in front of the other, you know, and God will lead you into it, you know. The counsel I would give, though, is that with every step you take, wherever it takes you, be faithful, be diligent, and keep your eyes on God. He will open a door into the next step for you, you know, and he will make a way for you into the next step. But I think that it is critical because sometimes we're so unhappy with where we are, we become useless where we are, right? And that uselessness sometimes is a hindrance to taking us into where we want to be. So wherever it is you are, be faithful, be diligent, apply yourself to the best of your ability. With your eyes on God, he will take you to the next level. And if you already know what you want it to be, then just trust God and keep doing, you know, what opportunities, keep doing what you're doing and keep maximizing every opportunity that he gives you. I think that's a critical component of getting to your destination.
Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you so much.